Hey everybody, Counttimer VHS here with a snapshot of my in-progress 4th Age Total War rune campaign. This is something that I don't see a lot on YouTube, and I actually wish I saw more of it. This is sort of snapshots from potentially critical moments in people's campaigns, because sometimes you don't want to watch 50 or 100 episodes of a Let's Play. You know, sometimes I get it, you do want to follow along and get all the details and the build-up and everything, but sometimes it's nice to just sort of dip in and see an isolated moment from a campaign that's likely to be a turning point, potentially, and how that's going to develop. And so that's what I hope to do today. So I do want to set up a little bit of background here, though. Rune is a faction that starts off in the east, of course. Initially, you have these 5 settlements: Fennisrim, Raycoast, Tham, Adel, and Amron Dor. Everything else around you is either rebel-held or held by other factions. And so you can tell I've expanded quite a bit here, but I did it in a pretty, I think, unconventional way. Typically, Rune is surrounded by a lot of rebel settlements. This one is probably the most prominent, because at the beginning of the campaign, you have an army right here, and this is just an unwalled rebel settlement. So the typical thing to do would be just to take it immediately. If you take a look at my my Rune campaign, the longer Let's Play on the channel, you can see that I think is my first move to take Erebos and then move on down. I completely ignored it this time, though, and this is something that I sometimes like to do, and just let the other factions deal with it. They'll take out the rebel settlements for you. It's going to cost them money and blood and treasure. And then, meanwhile, you can focus on other things, like attacking the factions that are actually going to grow and cause you a problem. Those rebel settlements are just waiting. Similarly, I did not grab Thordram, even though it is another easy rebel settlement to take in the beginning of the campaign, and nor did I go after Athrad Morn or Amron Magor. These are also both rebel-held. I waited, as you can tell, for Khand to take this one, and I waited for Adunabar to take this. So my first grab actually was Fornhud. This is the capital of the faction of North Rune, and this is a really good settlement for us to take. It's a chief city, as you can tell by the blue banner there, and it also affords some interesting recruitment options if you get it developed well enough. We can make some two-handed axemen that are just really good out of here. So I ignored the rebel settlements to the east and put together an army and attacked Fornhud and took it pretty much immediately. The next interesting development that happened in the north was that Dale actually turned North Rune into its protectorate. North Rune, as you can see there, they're on the overlordships list, only has 2 settlements at this point in the game. They've got this one over here, Gargal, and they also have Garth. And ever since they became Dale's protectorate, they have been obedient lapdogs. They have not done anything. This is something I've observed in Rome Total War generally. When you make a faction a protectorate, its AI basically switches off. It turns on to defense mode, and it doesn't do any aggressive maneuvers. So this is what I've seen with North Rune. Even though we were at war, I was able to get peace with them once they became a protectorate, and they have not troubled me at all, even though we shared a fairly lengthy border. I moved down here into Ear Helcor and took Belgant from Dorwinion, and I now have them holed up here in just a fort and then a capital. I'm sort of waiting a few more turns to see if I can get them to submit. The problem is this is their only settlement. They have a king in here, and inside the fort, which I would love to take, they've got a couple of family members, at least a couple. So I don't want to kill all of these guys and spend a ton of money making them a protectorate only to have their king die of old age next turn and, them to go away. Dorwinion is a pretty good neighbor, actually, even though we're at war. They're keeping Dale off my back, and Dale turning North Rune into a protectorate is the best thing that could have happened for me, because it means that Dale is not marching through this territory. Instead, they're focusing on, I don't know, attacking the dwarves or something off in the west, I guess. So I haven't had any trouble from Dale, North Rune, and Dorwinion. Since I took Belgant from them and defeated them in a battle or two, they've hung back, and it's only recently that I've put together a couple of armies to try to get them to submit to a protectorate, because as we know from some of the other episodes I've done, that can be a pretty lucrative cash cow. The other faction that's nearby is Rovanian, and they have actually a pretty large amount of territory in this region of the map. They haven't conquered all the way over to the Anduin, but close to it. And they've conquered all the way down to the Mountains of Ash, and all these settlements down here, I think there's these 3 in this arc pretty much north of the Arid Lithui. These were initially rebel-held, and I just let Rovanian take them. We're neutral. We've never been at war. They will periodically ask me for trade, and I will just refuse. and they have not bothered me whatsoever. In Mordor, this is where I've done a lot of really good work, and I'm very proud of this. So typically in the early game, a Dunabar, commands this area, and they will send an army up here to Athrad Morn, and that army will be big. It will have a lot of intimidating stuff like catapults, swords of the shadow, high tier, solid infantry, usually their best cavalry as well. Very heavy stuff. And for Rune, your forces are mostly like light, fur-clad barbarian types. Like, you get a lot of this low-tier warband skirmishers. You do have your higher-tier stuff. You've got axemen, spearmen. You've got some decent units, but a Dunabar has just about the best in the campaign. And so they're going to take this settlement of Mordor here, and they might try to go for this one too. Well, what happens a lot of times is they'll take it, but they'll have a hard time holding it. So you can actually wait and wait and wait and see what they're going to do. And what I did with the Dunabar was, again, I ignored this settlement completely, and I took Londnernen. You do have the benefit of an initial alliance, and in fact, military access alliance with Khand, just from the beginning of the campaign. You, as Rune, have this with Khand. And so that's what I did. I just marched through their territory, and I saw that Londnernen was incredibly vulnerable. No one was around. All of the big armies of Adunabar seemed to be off in the Anduin region, and so I took Londnernen, and they didn't really answer. I had one fight up here where I fought the big army, was able to take that out, took Athrad Morn, and then sort of swooped around here, while Khand took Amrun and Magor for themselves. No trouble there, except for, a little bit of rebellion, as you can tell. One of the double-edged swords of playing an Easterling faction is that you do have very high population growth, and that means that your cities are liable to grow and grow and grow and become crowded, smelly messes. And so I have to keep upgrading and repairing stuff periodically, because we do get these revolts, and then I'll need to keep training men out of here, which I do have the capability. As soon as I repair those control posts, I'll be able to train some more garrison. And then after I took Londnernen, I think the next one I took was Barad Eden, actually. Similarly, Adunabar didn't give me too much trouble here. They've been trying to get peace with the Reunited Kingdom, and so that's been very interesting to observe, because they are currently at war with both the Reunited Kingdom and Rohan, but every now and then you'll see that they have made a peace with Rohan, and then they'll go back to war because they're still at war with the Reunited Kingdom. And then they'll make a peace with the Reunited Kingdom, but then they'll go back to war with them because they're still at war with Rohan. If they ever settle a peace between all those three factions, it'll be kind of bad news for me. But honestly, I'm glad this has been a stalemate. It's actually been a perfect scenario. So I've felt really secure, probably the best opening that I've ever had. And with that security, I have decided to do something that I really like to do, and that is head down into Khand. Khand has been doing some interesting work this campaign. It doesn't look like it right now, but at one point they were looking very, very strong, and I thought they might push Harad into just over the edge. They came down here. They initially have Alag Rokbin, and they took Nar Imloth pretty early. They also, I believe, took this rebel settlement over here. So they had pretty much all of their starting territory, plus this settlement, and they moved into Parchareb. They also made Far Harad their protectorate. You can see this may be the only settlement. Yeah, this is the only one that Far Harad owns. Harad has taken over the rest. But we do have Harandor also moving down into Harad's territory. So Harad still holds, the coastlands, Umbar. They hold some of the inland provinces as well. But Harandor has taken a significant chunk out of some of their strongest central settlements. And so I was hoping that Khand would move in and take this stronghold as well. But it was not to be. Harad just has too much training capability, and so they've managed to grab a couple of settlements. But I am in the area now, and I can do something about this. And what we've done right now is we have set up an army. This is the smaller of two armies that really I brought down just as a reinforcement of the larger one under Ulfandos of West Rune, who's a pretty decent commander in general, all things considered. He's intelligent. Not the guy I'm going to want to do fighting with necessarily, but he can lead. And so I've got him with 4 units of axemen, actually 6 units of axemen, 2 of these high-tier spearmen, which are a decent, very solid unit for Rune. The axemen are good mostly because of their war cry ability and the numbers. And I've got Warwains, which are probably my favorite unit in the game. We've got the General, of course, and Riders of Rune. We've got 4 of these Eastland Raiders and 4 Easterling Archers, and I did bring a unit of Skirmishers, and then with the idea that we could grab mercenaries in the region. So I brought him down thinking, okay, we're going to find some big battle, and maybe we'll be able to get to that in this episode. But first, let's do this. Let's see if we can take Alagropian back for our allies of Khan. We're going to get some reinforcement here, not too much. Just a few dregs have showed up, but they're going to get some reinforcements as well. Now, this is Tanari of near Harad East, and what I'm worried about here, I don't know exactly what this army contains. I'm guessing, okay, it's not Mumikil. I was worried there for a minute. This is the actual general who, at the beginning of the campaign, I believe, leads a unit of Mumikil, but that seems to be not around anymore. Looks like what we've got is 4 Serpent Black, which will actually be very difficult for us to deal with. And everything else looks pretty basic, so let's see if we can do anything here. You know, if not, this is not where the main action is going to come in. And anyway, the thing that I'm noticing about this settlement that we're trying to fight for is that it's showing signs of rebellion. So Harad, even if we don't win here, they may lose it next turn. So who knows? This may be a bit unnecessary. We did pick up some mercenaries just before this battle. These are the mercenary step outriders. Very basic unit, but the nice thing is they've got numbers, they've got speed, and so they're quite good. Here's our axemen and our spearmen. And in the back, we've got some cav. These are mostly the light Eastland Raiders, as you can tell from the fur. But here we've also got our Chieftain's Guard with javelins and swords, and the Riders of Rune, a somewhat understrength unit with just swords. So let's get these sort of Lancer cav together. And let's see.
They have brought even more men. No matter, we will count the dead later.
Alright, our allies are going to come from back here, so we're going to try to converge on the main army and see if the reinforcing army from this settlement is going to amount to much. We'll see if they stick around. That's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on the minimap down here. The thing is, we're going for a settlement, and so if you rush the AI and the reinforcements think that you're going to win, typically they will just withdraw. If that happens, we don't get the city without a siege. And I'm not really interested in committing to a siege with this army. Now, this is going to be tricky because Serpent Black, okay, they are pushing through. They're a horse archer unit. They're also an extremely solid unit just all around. But let's see, they're charging. They're charging right into my spearmen, I guess, which is an interesting choice. So we'll move the general around. It's important that we kill all of these Serpent Black, and there's 3 of them. All right, let's hit the swords. Losing down to 27. We're not doing too great in terms of numbers either. We did take out an enemy commander. Alright, and those swords are routing. The Varieg Axemen are valiantly charging in now that they're routing. Okay, great. Okay, but that's it for them. Now we can bring up our infantry, which is actually the better arm. We don't want to waste the arrows too much on those routers. I guess I'd be okay with killing the Swords of Harad, but really it's going to be these 2 general units. And we do need to wait a little bit for the army to show up, that garrison. All right, Herodwaith Riders are just charging in. I think we'll be able to cut them down pretty easily. Alright, we gotta stay away from those swords. But I think at this point, we've kind of got to commit. Alright, those are some more light cav. Let's hit them, since they're not really giving us a choice. Stay away from those swords. The Swords of Harad have javelins. Alright, let's... I think this is going to be a messy, messy battle. So we'll just throw in even the horse archers here to do some flanking. I don't know that we're going to win. All right, we've got a lot of damage on those spears. Let's hit the swords, I guess, in the flank. The axemen are a good unit if they can win quickly. But by now their war cry has worn off, so they're not getting that plus 10 to attack or whatever it is. And so, yeah, our spearmen are routing, getting hit in the flank. Plus these units are scary, so we're losing the infantry completely. I think we're about to lose this. Now, again, this doesn't mean that we're going to lose the campaign in the south. But let's see if we can pull everybody back. I'd like to maybe at least keep the general for another fight. He can at least get some reinforcements in the way of mercenaries in the region. So we'll just withdraw here. Okay, that was a defeat. You know, let's call that a feint. That's what we'll do to preserve our pride. The high command of the Easterlings in Ruin will from now on refer to this maneuver as a feint. We never intended to take the city in the first place. So what we can do at this point, we could go and try to fight for Nar Imloth. We could try to attack this army, and that may be a good idea, actually. But we've got a much bigger target here, and I think if we do one good decisive attack around Karas Agar, we could do a lot of damage to Harad. So let's move the big army down towards it. Let's get right here. We don't have enough movement points to attack this little force. But we do have this guy back here, and we can sort of combine these units together. And yeah, that's about it. He'll just be basically in charge of buying up mercenaries when it seems useful to do so. Okay, we have one of these assistance requested messages. Very interesting. So Khand, presumably right here, is requiring our assistance probably to attack this army. Let's say yes. And usually the AI, when faced with that type of situation, will just withdraw, so you don't get to actually fight it. Okay, we're being attacked by Dorwinian. What I'm going to do then is withdraw. What I don't want to do is accidentally kill all of their family members up here. So we'll worry about that later, but it looks like we're shaping up for a nice big battle against Harad. So let's do that. And in fact, Harad has lost Alag Rokbin to rebellion, which is great. They won't be able to take it back for a little while, I think. And it's also weakened Khand, which is kind of nice. So we've got this army here. I don't think we need to do anything with him, but let's keep him in the region right now, right here, right on the border, close enough to potentially go in either direction. And I'm thinking Nar Imloth is probably going to rebel too. And this would go, again, to the rebel faction, meaning that Harad would have to take it or Khand would have to take it. And so it's going to tie up both of those factions. So let's go right here and attack Lieutenant Runako. He's going to stick around and fight. At least he's going to get onto the battlefield. And we can see he's got some interesting units, but they're very weak. There's only 5 men in this unit of Umbar Guard. Some of these units only have 4 or 2. He does have a couple of archers, a couple of full, and, you know, about a half. The biggest threat, of course, as so often with Harad, is those swords. So we want to be pretty careful about them. As Rune, we don't necessarily have the best answer to Swords of Harad. We don't have any really decisive knockout cavalry. We don't have the best archers, although we do have some. And our infantry is going to suffer against that kind of, you know, the javelins. And Harad's swordsmen are good fighters, just all around. So we'll put our spears on the flanks. We'll put the skirmishers back there. We do have these lovely looking wains. They're just great. So the trick with them is we're going to be constrained in terms of where we can deploy them, because all these little obstacles in the field, these rocks here, the trees to some extent, are going to foul up our maneuvers. However, there does seem to be a fairly open access over here. So if the army is deployed right back here, we can get through if we put the wains like this. I like to put them in this kind of chunky box formation. Let's put the lancers here as well. And then we've got our general as well as the swords, or the riders of Rune. And we'll see what they're deployed like. It's pretty much like I expected, so we can just move up. Now there are several units of cavalry here, and this is what we want to use the wains for, pretty much. There's two purposes to war wains. One is to attack cavalry. Just like in the vanilla game, chariots chew up cav, especially light cav. Now there's enough cavalry in these units, 64 in the Harad riders, that we can't just charge them head on and expect them to win, because our wains are pretty boxy and they're going to get bogged down. But they do have javelins, so they do have some ranged ability, and they also damage the morale of every unit on the field. So they frighten it. Oh, actually just the infantry. So they don't frighten the cav, but they are something of an anti-infantry unit. Now we do have to watch out for these archers. So I'm going to focus fire right on them, especially if they're going to be shooting towards my wains and cavalry. I want to preserve the wains and the cav for when they're most likely to be used. Used most effectively. And since it looks like they're moving already, let's go and start doing some blocking with my spears. War cry here, and I think I'm going to group and just have them target whatever happens to be close by. We've baited the cav into charging our archers. Alright, I think we've got a pretty good shot at this. These guys should rout. Yeah. Instantly routing as soon as they connect with our wains. And we've got some momentum right now, so let's great, cut down the enemy general. Let's circle back and we'll hit these swords of Harad. Alright, we're going to keep the wains going, because they're going to just cause fear among this whole blob. Alright, let's bring the cavalry and the general back around. And all of these infantry can run up too. Alright, we're stuck in here. We are taking a few losses because we are facing some swords. But there's a big rout happening. So yeah, this is not going to be a problem. We'll just keep moving the wains through and around. And that should be all of them. Fantastic. A nice, bloody, destructive battle. What you want to see when you're playing Rune. Fantastic. So we lost about 80 men in that fight. We're still in a very good position. We did lose a few wains. We lost a few of our infantry, but when you get that kind of momentum early on, you can see how few losses we took overall. It's just absolutely great result there. Now, this was not the best army that Harad has to throw at us, of course, but that's the kind of thing you want to do. Get them on the run and then just keep pushing through. And if it works, fantastic, then you've got it made. And if it starts to falter, usually you're going to lose the battle. But this is what makes fighting as Rune so much fun, because the battles are so swingy like that. So what did that do for us? Well, it put us in a position where there's now no big army of Harad right in the region. And so I've got some spies in the area. So let's just send them around and see what we're looking at. There's no reinforcements coming from this way, because you can see Harandor controls both of these regions. Khand still controls up here. So the reinforcements are going to come from the south, if at all. And let's see if there's anything in that part of the world. It does not really appear to be. We've got a couple of men here, and then we've got some reinforcements that could come down from this region as well. Let's send the emissary back up, see if he can identify those. Yeah, this is the bodyguard and so on that I fought last time. So what we could do at this point is potentially attack Karasagar, put it under siege. Inside, we don't know what they have, but it's liable to be more of the same. Probably swords, a mix of swords, cav, archers. But that has put us in a position where we can now think about taking this and giving it to Khand. Now, I have no illusions about this relationship. Khand is our ally for now, and they've been a perfectly good ally because they've had enemies. That's the thing in Rome Total War. You can trust your allies if you don't completely box them in and if they have something else to do. And so from the beginning of the campaign, Khand has been focused on Far Harad, and then not long after they made them their protectorate, they started attacking Harad. And they've been struggling against them sort of in this stalemate, which they've recently started to lose. So I'm pretty confident Khand is not going to turn on me in the near future. And if they do, I'll be able to handle it. So what I want to do is actually prop them up a little bit. The last thing I want to do in this campaign is do a bunch of fighting and get really close to my victory conditions, only to find that there's a gigantic, ridiculous army of Harad that's like spreading into Khand and threatening me from the south, and then spreading into Athelion, because I would like to take this part of the map too. So that's sort of a long-term goal. In order to do that, I want to make an alliance with Harandor and position Khand such that we can box Harad in. I'd love to see Harandor come out on top in this region. So at any rate, this is just a quick snapshot of the campaign. I hope you enjoyed this look at where things are for my my current rune campaign, and maybe I'll do some more of this in the future. If it looks like I'm facing an exciting couple of turns where we've got some good battles that might swing things a little bit, then I'll sort of jump back in and give you a sense of how that's going. Let me know if you'd like to see this more in the future, or if you really prefer the long form Let's Plays. I'm definitely going to continue doing those, but I think there might be some interest, there is for me anyway, in seeing people's campaigns that have reached a certain point but now face an interesting sort of hinge moment. But at any rate, thank you very much for watching. Until the next one, take care.